Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining our second day of the Lunchbox series, our back to school series. With us today, we have the fabulous Mary. She's going to be walking us through the middle age group children and how you can continue to prepare them for what's coming during the school year, beginning of the school year, and how you can support your children, your students. So I will hand it over to her, and I will be here if anyone has any questions. Thanks.
Hey, hi everyone. My name is Mary. I'm a developmental psychologist. I live in San Diego. We're gonna just touch on entering back into school, which I'm sure many of you and your kids have already been experiencing that transition. And we just wanted to sort of talk about, these last years of uncertainty and how to sort of enter in your students with a little more support from home. So I'm just sharing this. I just put together with some information about how to support your middle schoolers. So thinking about the last year, there's been a lot of isolation, from peers, and some, children have experienced loss of relatives. And uncertainty. So we're just thinking about the mental health of our students now. And I'm thinking about, how to encourage and provide honest reassurance. So, entering back into school, but they're not really sure schools aren't even sure if they're going to stay open. And, everyone's sort of planning for something that is still a little bit uncertain. So that can give your students a little bit of sort of anxious feelings just entering into it. I was thinking here that offering blanket statements, like everything will be fine, there's nothing to be worried about, that sort of invalidates, maybe what your child might be experiencing. Or the concern that they might be experiencing. So just making sure to validate that and be open that, about, things still being uncertain, and maybe talk through different scenarios. Hi. Sorry, so being open and go ahead.
I was just saying, welcome to Joey. We just got it. Okay.
So talking through different scenarios with your child about what the school year may look like. I was thinking today of another thing that we could sort of tag on to this, which would be to have different plans for different scenarios. So let's say that that's, what's probably likely to end up happening is that schools might close if they get have cases of COVID in the class. And so having a plan with your child for what it looks like, what their learning looks like from home, if that happens, and keeping to that. So I think that visual schedules are really helpful from a planning perspective, from an executive functioning perspective for our kids who are a bit older. So having a plan for what, like a schedule for what it might look like, and just keep it somewhere in your kitchen or in their room so that they know on those days off, or if they have time off, what those days will look like. So learning in the morning, a break for lunch, and trying to keep some sort of structure of the day so it doesn't feel just so open and a little bit scary. And so then they have a plan for when school, might not be in session or might shift to remote learning. And also what that plan looks like for having, interactions with friends in class, or, find out from your school what the plan is for, the whole class. Can they still be together, outside of school, and just make sure that you sort of have a plan and some answers for when those scenarios take place. And I know that I'm working in a lot of schools right now, and it seems like they're all figuring that out too as we get going, and as it's just sort of a fluid situation. So include your child in that, and all of the planning and talking about that. So another really important thing, thinking about students are looking toward their teachers and for their parents as positive role models for how to handle stress and anxiety. So if you're having big feelings about something, maybe not having them in front of them or having them in private and coming to them as sort of, more of a, like after you've sort of handled your own feelings about it, so that they, so that your kids feel like they can come to you and not take on, I guess, your stress or anxiety about it also. So sharing your coping strategies, and just being honest with them in a developmentally appropriate way. So again, talking about future school closures might be a possibility. What happens if your friends or teachers become ill, and other unpredicted stressful situations that might occur during the year. So again, just validating that your child, might be having upsetting or feelings of anxiety of the unknown, and just helping hold them in that. And then also taking care of yourself and knowing your limits. So, we all have a capacity to support our children, and, knowing, being in tune with whether or not you need time to be able to do that. So the months have been difficult for teachers, for parents. So you might be struggling to keep yourself healthy throughout all of this. So, show compassion to yourself as well as other people. And yeah, so those are the sort of pointers that I had, I guess, for thinking about entering back into the school year. And I know that there's not a lot of people on right now, but I'm open to take any questions or to talk about anything, Jessica or Cam, that you guys think you can be adding.
Do you have any questions, Joey? It seems like all of that was great information. Thank you for sharing that, Mary. I appreciate it. Your point about being upfront with children, and especially in this age group, and telling them what could happen so that they have the tools to prepare themselves, I think is really invaluable. I don't have children that are in this middle age group. I have younger children. So that's something that really struck me. I thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that.
Yeah, of course. I think that's the nice thing about older kids, is that you can have more of an honest dialogue with them that they can understand. And I think that when kids see that you're regulated around those things that are challenging, then they feel safe in that. And so that's definitely relevant here with COVID and all of the uncertainty.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I feel like that's most relevant now.
Yeah.
Mary, do you have any advice for separation anxiety, and particularly like as some of the younger members of this group, but some of the older too, get going, and those that have been remote for the last 18 months, if they're dealing with anxiety and feeling anxious about not being around the house when they know their parents are still there working remotely, what are some tactics that you think might help with that?
Yeah, I think it's interesting you say that, because I think I'm working with a lot of kiddos, a lot of older kiddos who actually really leaned into being home, and they really liked it. And they liked having their, their own, quiet space, and maybe working on their work at their own pace, and having their parents around. And, maybe the hustle and bustle of a classroom was challenging for them with learning, or just, with interacting with peers. And so I do have a lot of kiddos that I see, and kiddos that I know who really did like being home. And so this transition back for them, can be challenging because maybe they don't really want to go back. And so again, I think just validating that, like how special that time, is for you at home, and in the same way that we would help young children separate from their parents, just having them know a plan, that what the plan is for, that you're, I'll take you to school every day, and then I'll pick you up, or so-and-so will drive you home, or you'll walk home. And then, knowing what their plan is at home, I think gives kids a lot of security just in that. So just I think having those conversations and talking, visiting maybe the reasons why, like, yeah, it seems like it's going to be tricky for you back at school because I know that you really liked being home, and I loved having you home too, and that was such a special time for our family, and it's tricky, but we're here, and we can talk about it. And but I think it's interesting you say that, because I think when you think about school starting, you think about how excited kids are to be back with their friends and at school, and that like they're just running into there, but I think that's not the case for everyone. So but that's a great point.
Do you have any advice, Mary, for some of those students who might feel a little, I think the parents might label them this way, unmotivated? I have a neighbor here who's tells me her son is very unmotivated. So I think in talking to her, it's really that he just is like, oh, this again. Like I don't know if it's a separation thing or if it's just the age group, it's like this, I don't know, 8 to 13 age group where they're just maybe in a little funk.
Yeah, a little, I think, that definitely starts as a little tricky. I think, I mean, as far as going to school for most kids, it's a have to. I mean, unless you're going to transition to homeschooling all the time. I mean, going, to in-person learning, it's just, I think that kids can know what something that you must do and something that, I don't know, that you want to do. And so, so I think, again, just trying, it becomes tricky at this age sometimes to, open kids up and peel back the layers, but maybe there are reasons why, kids start to become prickly and then they maybe shut down a little. So if you can, peel back some of the layers and figure out why, maybe there are challenges, maybe there are things that he feels like he can't do, and then it comes off as instead like that they don't care, when really probably he deeply cares about, different aspects of that, and they're just instead challenging. We've talked a little in another session about Dan Siegel, and he wrote a book called Brainstorm, which is sort of the case for adolescence, and talking about how this time for adolescence is it's the second biggest period of brain growth in your lifetime. And so from the time you're about 13 until 25, you have as much as many neural connections as you do from birth to 5 years old. So it's and in a lot of ways, I think that maybe people can relate to teenagers sort of having some similar characteristics to toddlers in terms of their emotional dysregulation, and trying to problem solve and figure out these more sophisticated ways of handling their emotions and the things around them. And so I think what happens a lot, and this is sort of getting into a deeper conversation, but what happens a lot is that kids might become a little prickly or say that they don't care, or we think that they're not motivated, or that they're lazy, or that they just don't want to do things. And really this is a time to and so then I think parents just give them space and let them be, and he doesn't want to talk to us, and she doesn't want to come and have dinner with us anymore, but really we need to keep drawing our kids in and keep being there and try even more and try and bring them even closer, because there's this sort of dichotomy that they really need that, but then they pretend that they don't want it. And so it's an interesting time in human development, I think.
Great, thank you for sharing that. That's helpful. I'm going to pass all of this along.
Yeah, actually, maybe we can add it to.
Joey had a question, actually.
Okay,
Mary, we didn't hear you, Joey.
I do have a question. Yeah, I have a question. I was actually at a speaker series last night about mental health generally, but was interesting because for children, the school counselor brought up a point, and I just kind of wanted to ask your opinion on this. she said typically it takes school-age kids about 2 weeks to get back into the routine of school and class and sitting still at their desk and learning the new routine. And she said for our district and where she's at, they're planning for this kind of on ramping up period or whatever to last about 2 months. Earlier you were mentioning like preparing your child for if and when a situation of the school shuts down could occur. I'm just wondering, like, if they're still in that transition change pattern, you know, and it's been a month or something. I know that for me anyway, talking with my son, it could spur a lot of anxiety to have that conversation now, and he's 10. But I'm just wondering if you have any thoughts around, like, if they're just starting to get comfortable in the situation and then it's going to change, like, what kind of recommendations do you have in that space?
Right, sort of like if every time they transition back and forth, if it's going to be like another 2 months or 2 weeks or whatever to get adjusted again. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, that, and also like if they're barely just starting to get adjusted and then they have to change. So I'm just wondering, like, how can we be, if you have any ideas on being supportive?
Yeah, I wonder if
there may be a flip-flop situation.
Yeah, I wonder if that's where, when I was talking earlier about having plans and things in place for when those shifts happen, and just sort of prefacing with like that, like the sort of school year, like we don't know when these things are going to happen, and if they do, that this is what, you know, it's probably going to look like, and we'll leave a little bit of wiggle room for change. But I guess, like, you know, whatever that looks like for you at home, whatever it looks like for him at home, to be remote learning, to be, you know, I think it seems like schools have an idea of what their protocol is, right? So if a child or a teacher gets COVID, then I don't know, our you know, schools, I think that they're closing down for 2 weeks, just that classroom, not the entire school. It seems like that's the sort of universal thing. So you know, or whatever their protocol is, I would lay all of that out and again, just validate or just have conversations around, like, I know that it's so disruptive for you and for your classmates to be able to get adjusted when you have to like take this break from class. But you know, that's the way that this year is going to be until you know, all of the grown-ups in the world can figure out how to work together to, you know, help COVID simmer down a bit. So, and then, you know, what does that look like at home? And then I think just having that plan in place so that it's not like a surprise or a shock then if something happens. But I mean, I don't know, I think it's just the nature of the way things will be for now, is that it might be this up and down, and hopefully it's not, you know.
Yeah, I like how you say that, like, all the grown-ups in the world have to figure out how to work together, because it's something where I'm trying not to put fear on him or on the situation or put blame on the school, but the school honestly hasn't communicated any plan B to parents yet for the district. So I think that's a really great one to say, like, when all the adults in the schools and in the world figure it out, then we'll have a better plan. But I think that's a really good way to put it. I like that.
I wrote a book for younger kids when COVID first started, actually when everyone was still calling it coronavirus. So that's how long ago it was. And one of the things we talked about in there for young kids, which I think is relevant, is that it's not any child's job to worry about what to do to you know, shift things for COVID. So I think just like taking that off, like the scientists are working on it, the doctors are working on it, all of the grownups in your life and all of your teachers and every, you know, one at your school are working on a plan. And once, you know, I know, or when I have more information, I'm going to share it with you so that we can make a plan at home or make a plan for school or whatever the case is. So I think just like taking that off of these poor little guys.
That's great, Mary. Thank you.
I like that thumbs up. I don't know how we did that.
Oh yeah, that's so cool. Joey with the tech savvy.
Yeah.
That was really helpful. I was actually like typing some notes for what the friend that I had mentioned who has children in this age group. Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any other questions or topics you want to hit on? And no pressure if there's not. This has been really, really great, and lots of information is coming out of the session. So thank you for doing this.
Yeah, of course.
I think that might be it. So thank you very much. We're
Yeah, of
happy
course.
that you could do this today. Thank you so much.
Yeah.